incident. But then I started looking at the numbers and the evidence, and well, I don't want to be the one that breaks it to you guys, but AI incidents are happening, right? There's a lot of facts around that. We see AI incidents, they're increasing in scale, they're increasing in severity, they're increasing in frequency, right? Just in the last couple of years, we've seen AI-enabled cyber attacks on critical infrastructure. We've seen manipulative systems really harming individuals, especially vulnerable groups of our society, like children. And there's even been claims from some, right, that some models are demonstrating deceptive behavior, refusing to shut down. So AI incidents, as I said before, are happening. What I don't think is what we need is another AI incident. What we need is to build cross-border infrastructure to actually prevent these AI incidents, to be able to classify them and really analyze alarming patterns, to be able to share incidents when it makes sense to do so across jurisdictions, and to be able to learn from those AI incidents. So before I wrap up, we actually, about 2 months ago at the Future Society, held a pre-summit event called the Athens Roundtable. And as part of this event, one of the conversations that we had there was around serious incident prevention and preparedness. And so I wanted to just kick us off with some of the takeaways of, at least how I understood the takeaways from that dialogue and what were some of the common themes. The first one is around inadequate detection. So a lot of people were mentioning that right now our incident monitoring platforms that we do have rely on capturing incidents actually using AI. So we scrape mostly media stories to understand what has gone wrong. And that's it's not a perfect solution. It's a solution towards, or at least there's something. But I do think we need more systematic approaches to get there. There are many jurisdictions that are starting to create reporting requirements. There's notably the EU AI Act. In California, where I'm based, there's the SB 43. But those are still at very early stages, and it's to be seen what happens when it comes to enforcement, right? And from a cross-border perspective, we're also thinking there's so many different definitions of AI incidents within those. Again, serious incidents, critically safe incidents, you call it what it is, that there's an issue definitely arising around interpretability. Then the second topic is really one that relates to accountability. When we think about AI incidents, and because the value chain is so complex, it's so global, it's very hard to assign responsibility. At least we haven't figured out how to build that liability regime yet. And I should probably mention here, a lot of times when we talk, I probably just made that mistake. We say AI is posing the risks, right? And I think it's an important reminder to keep in mind that it's individuals behind these AI systems that are developing and deploying the actual technology. And it's individuals that are enabling, I guess, the system to happen without having adequate checks and balances or without creating new incentive structures. And the third point after accountability that comes up is around preparedness. I think that's a buzzword that we keep on hearing over and over, at least in many conversations that I've been part of in the past year, when we're thinking about response capacity specifically to incidents. And I think this is a space that we just need to do a lot more, have a lot more coordination and progress on. So obviously, if you add to all these elements the cross-border layer, knowing that AI is really realized, as I said before, in a global supply chain, and everything is so interconnected, it's very easy to see how much we need cross-border incident infrastructure. So I'm going to pose some questions and then invite the panelists and our moderator, my colleague Kaio, to join us on stage. And I'll pose the questions, and hopefully the panelists can give some answers to those questions. But the first one is around how as an international community can we come together, can we better organize, can we better act to actually have AI incidents serve as that wake-up call for policymakers to have stronger governance mechanisms. And then related to that, what are the actual technical and policy components needed for this incident infrastructure? There's already some shared reporting taxonomies. How do we scale those taxonomies? How do we build information sharing protocol between jurisdictions? How do we make sure there's robust data governance structures in place? And the other part of the question, what are the right institutions, or what are the appropriate actors, I should say, that should take a role in this? The last question I want to leave with is, how do you link AI incidents to red lines? There's a lot of work that the Future Society does on that, and we often think, how do incidents serve as those early warning signals that tell us when we're reaching a certain risk threshold, at least, or a dangerous territory? So how do we make that connection and feedback loop? So with that, I will invite our moderator for the day, Kyle Machado, to the floor. He will be moderating what we have in panel really full of AI experts when it comes to AI incidents. So please, let's give a round of applause and let's get started.
Good morning. Hello, hello. Good morning, everyone. So I'll invite our speakers to come up. I'll introduce you in a second. I've also been asked by the organizers first to start off with a picture. So instead of a picture at the end, we'll already start with one. Nikki will need you for that. Dishita, oh, there's our photographer. So should we sit? Should we stand? Yeah. So a quick pause for. We've got the picture. We can go now. I'll introduce our speakers today. So I'll be very brief, and if there are any points from your experiences that you would like to bring up during your speech, please do so. So I'll start with Elham Tabasi, who's Director of AI and Emerging Technology Initiative and Senior Fellow at the Brookings Institution and former Chief AI Advisor at US NIST. Followed by Ms. Akiko Murakami, who's the Executive Director of the Japan AI Safety Institute. Followed by my fellow Brazilian, Hugo Valadares, who is from the Ministry of Science and Technology. He is the Director of the Department of Science and Technology and Digital Innovation. And finally, Marko Grabelnik, who's the AI champion for Slovenia and an AI researcher who co-chairs the AI Incident Working Group at the OECD. So good morning to you. It's very nice to have you. Thank you once again, coming all the way to India for us to discuss. I'll start with Marko at the other end. You have been working with Guard. Absolutely.
Let's go.
So you have been working a lot with the OECD Incident Group and really advancing the discussions around definitions and working to establish this cooperation across multiple nationalities. And I'm interested, from your global vantage point, what are the gaps we have in developing incident monitoring right now?
Well, obviously, the major gap is sensing the incidents, right? So at the moment, we have just mainstream news, more or less, right? Not even social media, because social media got locked, right, a few years ago. So we have mainstream media, so which means that we detect pretty much everything what kind of spills over, which is significant enough so that it's newsworthy, as journalists would say, right? Which mostly it's okay, right? Mostly it's okay, but it's not systematic, right? So this is one major gap, right, on the sensing part. Now, there are gaps along the whole pipeline, right? I would say, so at the moment we collect this data, we organize it, we structure it, we classify it, so we have all these nice OECD schemas, and you can search across this and so on. We can count this, so we get statistics and so on, all fine. But, you know, what Nikki was mentioning before, right, the feedback loop, right, is missing, right? So the feedback loop back to the policymakers. At the moment, policymakers can, okay, see the incidents, but then use pretty much imagination what to do, right? So one extension, what we are working on at OECD right now is how to provide a little bit more proactive um, um, recommendations, mitigations, policies ahead of time, right? So a little bit of this landscape around particular incidents so that policymakers would at least uh, uh, get ideas, right? Maybe slightly out-of-box ideas, what to do, how to do, and so on. You know, policymakers are slow. Okay, fine. Uh, that's why, let's say, we would speed up. So these, I would say, two major gaps, right? So sensing. Now we have mainstream media, social media. I'm not sure if would be useful anyway. It might be that in the future we'll get this obligatory reporting from the companies. Now that companies would be extremely incentivized to report their failures, right? But okay, this may happen. And the second gap is closing the loop, right? As the title of the panel. Right?
All right, weaving in the title of the panel. Thank you, thank you. And just a quick follow-up. Have you seen, while working with, well, I understand the incident monitoring has global coverage and we're seeing stuff all over the world. This is a great point that we're tied to that lens of what's media reportable, what's interesting, and so on. But are there any particular capabilities or type of incidents that are showing up that are drawing more attention?
Yeah, so, well, this would be maybe 5-10 minutes lecture, right? So that I would show these graphs, but somehow we clustered the incidents into, I think, 14 groups or something, and some types of incidents go up, some go down, and some are more like this incidental, like, I don't know, incidental ones would be elections, right? So just before elections, you would get spikes, right? So, and then goes down, and then you get spiked later on as well, right? Then, let's say an interesting one is autonomous cars, accidents, right? So this used to be extremely well reported a while ago, right? Maybe 10 years ago, you know, there was one accident, right? And everybody was writing about this one accident. Now nobody cares anymore because there are just too many accidents and cars, and people got used to it, right? So this went down, right? And then there are a couple of types of incidents which kind of go up, especially, yeah, these fakes. You know, if you look how AI evolved in the last maybe just 6 months, you don't need to go much further, right? 3-6 months. We got a couple of crazy good tools like Nano Banana and a couple of others, right? Suddenly you can make deep fakes for talking here on the mic, right? I could produce extrememly good deep fakes, for instance, right? The cost is close to zero, right? So these would be like 3 types. I would need to show the graph. Maybe just the last sentence, right? Since we have this OECD taxonomy of incidents, and hazards, right? So there's one type of incidents which didn't happen yet, right? Thanks God, right? Catastrophic incidents, right? We left the space for these possible catastrophic ones, right? So it seems like AI doomers are begging for one, right? Because every day you hear, oh, well, it will happen, Didn't happen yet, right? Didn't happen yet, but it may, you know, some people will be happy because they invested so much energy in scaring people, right? I mean, it's obviously, right? You know, the cartoon Monster Inc., right? We scare because we care. So this is the AI doomers roughly are of that kind, right? I hope I didn't insult anybody here. Right?
It's that pleasure of saying, I told you so, right?
Yeah,
I told
exactly.
you so. I didn't want it to happen, but I told you so. But I'll take a point you mentioned, which is how in certain incidents in the beginning, it happened once and it generates outcry and then people get used to it. So there is a difference between the public perception of a risk and a harm and eventually bringing a taxonomy and working with that. So I'm using this as a hook to come over to Elham. And, Elham, you have, as we mentioned, experience as the Chief AI Advisor at NIST, which I understand had a lot of work on risk management framework, and I'm interested in hearing what are the limitations and the challenges of the framework, especially when you have real-life incidents and cross-border incidents. Have you been faced with situations where the taxonomies are challenged? Yeah, if you could elaborate a little bit.
Um, First of all, thank you very much for having me here. It's great to be in this panel. Marco, I hope that scenario never happens because we are all working towards making sure that we have a sort of responsible, trustworthy AI. I just want to start by saying that we should take it seriously that AI doesn't happen to us, and it's all on all of us and all of the efforts that we do to make sure that it progress in a safe way. Going back to your question, and I don't know your question was around AI RMF or the just current governance and risk management practices, but I'll try to address both of them. I think first of all, I should say that the technology is moving much faster than any of these frameworks and policy and standards can keep up with them. But some of these mismatches that I see is on the two dimension of temporal and jurisdictional, that the jurisdictional one has been already mentioned. So what I mean by the temporal is that majority of the risk management processes, governance processes that we have, they are heavily on study for the pre-deployment, which is also necessary, but they assume that the risk and incident can be identified pre-deployment and can be managed within certain national organizational border and jurisdictions. I want to say that AI RMF is maybe a little bit exception to that, that it emphasizes post-deployment monitoring, continual monitoring, but the problem is that we don't quite know how to do the evaluations in the right way. But going back to, again, incident reporting is that the problem with emphasize in the pre-deployment is that the majority of the incident or serious incidents that we have to be worried about and report them and have a way of dealing with them are those that happening post-deployment, and there are cross-border, there are emergent, and many of these pre-deployment testing that are based on red teaming, benchmarking, threat modeling analysis are important and necessary, but they cannot reliably predict how the models are going to behave and function in real, messy context of the use that they haven't been really seen before being deployed there, where the it's open-ended use, you have cascaded interactions and many other things that cannot be really thought of during the pre-deployment. And compounding all of these challenges is that as we all reading, hearing, and learning that particularly agents, they can differentiate between the operational and the development or testing environment. So they can behave completely differently in this environment, which is quite a challenge on how to design a test for the behaviors and for the functions that we don't know. To kind of summarize that, the real incidents that we want to follow and not follow, but kind of we watch for them. They are emerging. You know, their failures emerges when the AI is in use at scale. You know, a lot of the misuses we only see them when they are at scale, and also some non-AI aspects of this. You know, system integrations, cascading interactions that you don't see them, and you cannot really design for scenario testing before that. On top of that, the issue of the discovery has been mentioned. We don't have a systemic way of monitoring the systems to figure that out. We are relying on the external researchers and media to report that, so there's a lot of blind spot there too. Then there is this cross-jurisdiction problem that AI systems can be trained in one jurisdiction, hosted, used, deployed in other jurisdictions, and so the visibility to what happens across the different stages of the AI lifecycle may not be readily available for anybody to look at that. So it causes some challenges there. The issue of the when incident happens, then the structural weaknesses start showing up, like as it was mentioned, not having a shared taxonomy and definitions for the reporting, not having a uniform threshold for where an incident should be reported across the different jurisdictions. So I think all of them makes the current structure having blind spots that we should be worried about because we don't want the serious incidents go undetected. So I just end by saying that assurance-centric governance, risk managements are really important, and we should pursue that. But maybe, well, not maybe, as we talked about it in AI risk management, we should also augment that with post-deployment monitoring, with maybe resilience-centric governance after the post-deployment for all this.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And this duality between what we can assume pre-deployment and what we can do post-deployment. I'm thinking here even post-decommissioning, right? We release AI systems in the world, they operate, then a company stops existing, you turn it off, but the model might be out there, variations of the model. So you want to compliment?
No, I just want to say that what does the decommissioning mean? How do we know that we have actually took everything off the system? So, yeah.
Amazing. Akiko, I'd like to move on to you. You're, as the head of the Can you? Yeah, sorry. I tend to project my voice, so I forget if the microphone is on or off. But you can all hear me at the back? All good? Great. So, Akiko, as the head of the Japan AI Safety Institute, and now operating in a global network where you're getting colleagues from all over the world, but it seems to me that each safety institute has a variation of mandates, of governance designs. Some try to be independent, other are within a Ministry of Science and Technology, others are multi-ministerial. I'm curious to your views as the AI Safety Institute's capability of being the place to monitor incidents and promote preparedness at a global scale.
Thank you for the question, and thank you for having me today. So, my opinion is that, as you mentioned, that the definition of the AI Safety Institute in each country are totally different. So, for instance, in Japan, we are being the hub of the information about the AI safety inside and outside Japan. And also that we are now expanding our mission to not only for the information hub, but also having the capability to examine the AI models and systems by ourselves. But some of the AI institute have the same kind of the capability, but the another type of the institute do not have the capability. So it depends on the country situation. And also each company has not all of the AI safety institute or the relating to the institute having the skill set of that examination of the models or the monitoring the system. And but the network's mission is that they not only for the doing the monitoring by ourselves, but also the discussing what's the kind of the benchmark or what kind of the red line for the AI safety in the world. So because of the talking about the AI safety is sometimes very complicated, apart from the national security. And so that's why we are focusing on the technical issues and what kind of and do not want to talking about the ethic or human rights by ourselves. So that's so many the organization talking about the AI ethics or the human rights, like the OECD or the GPI are doing that kind of the discussion. And the thanks for such kind of the discussion, the AI Safety Institute network focusing on the technical issues, how to operate such kind of the benchmark, the realizing we can the understanding this AI is a safety or not. So that's the most important part of the mission of the AI Safety Institute network. I do believe so.
Amazing. Thank you very much. I'm going to move on to Ugo, and then we'll do a second round. And in the second round, if you guys want to comment Hugo, from the perspective of a country that's building its governance framework, and will have to interact with the space, which Kiko was mentioning, and each country has its own design, its own governance framework. How do you see, first of all, nationally, how will Brazil may be prepared, because we don't know if the law is going to be approved, to respond to incidents, and how will Brazil be prepared to dialogue with other countries in responding to AI incidents?
So first of all, thank you very much, Caio, my friend, Brazilian. It's very nice to be here and to discuss this very important subject. First of all, I believe it's important to mention how Brazil is dealing with the subject of AI. Since 2024, we launched the Brazilian Plan of Artificial Intelligence. And this plan presents 5 axes. And in this axis, we have 54 actions to discuss all the dimensions related to AI. Of course, every day you have to put another action because it's impossible to forecast what is going to happen tomorrow. And but now I'm sure that first of all we were thinking about 3 great subjects: human resources, sovereignty of the data, and hardware, supercomputing. But now we are very sure that we have the 4th dimension, I mean, cybersecurity, because it's not possible to do anything without security. In this sense, we are working in all that dimensions together because you have to do everything simultaneously. And you know, this year is national elections. President Lula will be here the day after tomorrow. And he's very concerned about that because the fake news and the generative AI, I like very much generative AI, but it's dangerous sometimes. So we're also concerned. And, but we are doing a lot of stuff. And of course, it's not regarding the fake news and something like that. Some months ago, we have an unprecedented attack in our system. Dr. Caio knows PIX, and yes, probably you know what I mean. 3 attacks, and we have a very great prejudice. And that time, we are investing actually in many of the dimensions I told to you. So first of all, we are buying a system, actually 100 million reais, to investigate for our researchers about we need to take care of our childhood, our children, the minors, especially in the internet environment. So we are investing a lot of money to research about that. We also joined with the ministry, actually is the Cabinet of Institutional Security. We are creating sensors to detect the attack previously. And this is a very big project we are doing with the colleagues, with some colleagues for Spain. And I mean, usually the attacks we not prevent, but we act after they happen. So we are trying to create a system to solve this kind of problem before. And but I mean, the main subject here, in our opinion, is international cooperation. We have to do everything together. It's not possible to a country to do everything by themselves, by itself. So what's the main gap, in my opinion? Not in my opinion, Brazilian opinion, the government opinion. The political process, the bureaucracy is very slow compared to the technology speed. So we have to do a lot of things yesterday for tomorrow, and sometimes we spend years with MOUs and dialogues, but that's the word. And we have to do something. So this very moment, we are working to expand our cooperations with the countries. Brazil has a lot of friends, country friends in the world. So we are working on this kind of stuff, and we are very happy. I believe we are going to find very good solutions to mitigate this kind of attack, and this is the current world. We have to work on that.
Amazing. Thank you, Ugo. Thank you very much. And I'll move to Elham. And exactly on this point of international cooperation that Ugo was mentioning, and which is so critical. Oh, just as a parenthesis, Ugo mentioned PIX, which is, for context, it's a Brazilian payment system developed by the central bank, public. And just today, BRICS announced BRICS payment system. So Brazil, India, China, South Africa, and other countries that join later. So this is getting pretty big, and having such a payment system involving whole blocks being attacked with the use of AI is a great risk to many nations, and addresses again the issue of international cooperation. So Elham, when incidents do occur, and I hope it won't happen to the payment system, or at least when I have debt, maybe then it could happen. What should a well-functioning AI incident reporting pipeline look like? What are our critical, or at least minimum elements that we should have in all jurisdictions that Brazil could incorporate, for example?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So when I think about this, and learning from our panelists and the point that they made, I think three things comes to my mind. One is that a monitoring system and incident reporting needs to generate outputs and results and technical facts that are relevant for decision making and decision makers. So having that lens on this. Then the second thing that it needs to be, I think, lightweight enough that it can be adopted and used, or not heavyweight that prevents using this. And then the last thing is that some sort of a standardized reporting that, and if we do that right, it is not kind of tied to one jurisdiction, so it's flexible as other jurisdictions has the different rules and regulations. The reporting can be applied and be helpful for those other regulations. So what we need to get there is, it was mentioned, Marco mentioned that we need some sort of a beyond shared understanding, but more sort of a standardized definitions and taxonomy for what is incident, and that's what the work that OECD did with the definitions of incidents and accidents and all that. And I was privileged to be part of that work. And there are other work too that, for example, USAI incident databases, or MIT has a series of work. So how to bring all of them together in a more standardized way. The second thing is that make sure that our approaches, I'm a big fan of risk-based, outcome-based approaches that prevents us from getting too prescriptive. So an outcome-based approach that triggering for when an incident should be reported is based on the severity of harm that can happen, can be realized if an incident happens, or is very likely to realize, versus the system categories or model capabilities, because those definitions can change over time and can change over jurisdictions. It has been mentioned, and I mentioned that too, I'll say it again, that we need to have some sort of a standardized reporting that's flexible enough for different jurisdictions, but beyond that also allows for mechanisms for sharing those information. Not all of the informations about the incidents can be in public, so then we need to think about ways that the nations can share those informations, and also think about some sort of a perhaps stage timing, that when an incident is reported, something happens quickly, but make sure that we follow it up with enough technical information to understand that, to make sure that it doesn't happen again. And the last thing I will add is make sure that there is enough incentives for the people and the entities to actually do this. There is usually they compare AI incidents with cybersecurity incident reporting that is, that has have a lot of benefits. But I think there's also some sort of a subtle differences that when there is a cybersecurity incident reporting, it's often at the same time or very quickly followed by a patch, so they can take the credit for solving it. With AI, it's a lot more difficult. You just report that something gone wrong, and there's a lot of reputations and other things to worry about. So how to find the right incentives so that they report that and don't cut corners in reporting that.
Thank you very much. Marco, I want to loop you in this conversation as well, because I think you'll have thoughts on what sort of information we should be sharing when it comes to cross-jurisdictional coordination. What would be the bare minimum, again, that we'd need to think of thresholds to respond, threshold to trigger international cooperation, what should companies disclose, to what parties? Do you have any take on that?
Yeah, it's a complicated question, right? Because it's a lot of consensus which needs to be, or many parties which need to be aligned. If you go across jurisdiction, cross country, cross culture, if you want, even cross technology, cross business, right? So there are many crosses here, right? Now, there are several sub-questions which you asked. Well, what would be useful in terms of level of details, right? Level of details would be, so we would need to know why the accident happened. So at the moment, we don't have causality, any notion of causality in this incident detection, analysis, reporting, and then feedback loop, right? So the concept of causality needs to be brought in, and then this would allow actually the policy feedback loop. This is where what I mentioned at the end of my first intervention, right? So causality, right? Then next thing, which it's extremely important. So AI, as we knew like 2 years ago, or 1 year ago, or today, or the AI which we'll experience in 1 year from now, these are different AIs, right? Similar, but fairly different. These days, I don't know, we have this, we are getting there to have this complex agentic structures, right? This is so much different compared to, some small, poor LLM where you drop in a little bit of text and you get in response something, and maybe, it was insulting, but then people were saying, oh, this is really ugly, and so on. Now we have no clue anymore where things happen, right? Where things happen, why they happen, and so on. So it's getting way more complicated. What Elham was mentioning, the real-time aspect is also, right? So mitigation too late is better not even to mitigate, right? Almost. Reaction time, right? This is an important one. So sharing, so there's one important element, right? So these AI products, generally they are coming from companies, right? These companies usually would like to keep the secret, right? Business secret and so on. Now sharing all the details, they're not really incentivized to explain, this happened because we are using that component, and this component, well, it was so much cheaper, so that's why we introduced it, but it's a little bit buggy. Okay, some troubles came out, but generally it runs fine. This is very usual response. How to convince them? Yeah, maybe by policymakers and so on, but unclear. Certainly incentives are not there at the moment. And just to conclude, right, so cross-culture, cross-country, cross-jurisdictional, there's no AI which would run, hardly any AI which runs in a single country. Okay, maybe US, China, a little bit different, but generally AI runs all over, right? So, and why? Because it's, well, everybody's developing this, either agents or something else, or because clouds are everywhere, tons of things, right? How to share? Unclear. unclear. I mean, of course, it's very easy to talk about this, but in a practical implementation setting, I'm not sure if this will be implemented in an easy way in the foreseeable future. Likely not. Maybe we will get some samples, but systematically, you know, likely not. Currently, this OECD AI monitor, right, AIM as we call it, you can go to oecd.ai/incidents, right? So this is the portal. So per day we have few tens of incidents, right, of different kinds, and across all the languages, cultures, and so on. Of course, mostly on the Western side of the world, but.
Still have about 8 minutes, so my final questions are to Akiko and then Hugo. I'll ask you to keep it around 44 minutes. Akiko, as long as we're discussing this AI incident reporting life cycle, right? With what we need to report, what are the challenges? I know Japan released an incident response playbook recently. I couldn't read the kanji, but I was very interested in it, so maybe you can share a little bit about that with us. And also discuss a little bit of how your experience with collaborating with the companies in private and public partnerships have worked to build trust and share this responsibility.
Thank you so much. So the incident is as you mentioned, that the technology is changing very rapidly. So that's why if we release the concrete response about each incident, is that the book is being old as soon as possible. So that's why the guidebook is not only not for the each incident the treatment, but also the framework for how to react to the incident itself. So the framework is not changing rapidly because of the organization, how to the monitoring, the periodically, the freshness, data freshness or something like that is keeping in the very long time. So that's why we release the very framework of how to react to the accident. So that's why and also that we had now replacing very frequently because of this is a very living document. So that's why even if we do not have the concrete incident react appointment, but just releasing the framework, but we changed the periodically of the document, keep the living document. So that's one of the topic. And also they asked me about how to collaborate with the private sector to how to keep such kind of the incident reaction. So in Japan AI Safety Institute have the working group for the realistic problem. For we have the two types of the working group. One is the vertical, the working group for each industry sector. That we started from the healthcare and robotics, and we are going to expand the vertical layer for each industry, like the financial sector or the other kind of the industry. And another types of the working group is that the horizontal one. So the horizontal means that it's a common layer of the AI safety, like the data quality or the how to inspect the AI models or something like that. So that's the types of the working group is focusing on how to the real reaction for the AI incident. However, it's not doing by ourselves, the government or the AI Safety Institute. But so that's why we collaborate with the private sector, starting from the Japanese domestic company, but we would like to expand our activity to the internationality.
Amazing. Thank you very much. And finally, Ugo, to bring us home.
Let's go.
I'll ask two questions, actually. One is more of a gossip I've heard, and maybe you can share some with us. I hear Brazil has been working on a Transparency Institute. I don't know if there's anything that can be shared there, but just throwing it out there, which would be potentially working with the AI Safety Institute. But my main question and my true question is, I'm very interested in understanding how Brazil sees the possibility of working with other middle powers to respond to incidents and well, to monitor and respond to incidents.
Um, so the last to talk, last to speak is easier because all the intelligent people already said, so it's easier for me. The difficult questions was answered. So thank you for my colleagues. But I mean, everyone in here, we have a very good convergence about what we should do. And first of all, regarding what Brazil is doing, we already started to talk to other countries, especially in South America and Latin America. Because, of course, we have, how can I say, similar problems, you know? So we have to do, especially, of course, we are right now, you are right, we are creating our AI Safety Institute. And it's my pleasure to announce that Professor Wagner Meira, who is here, he is from the Federal University of Minas Gerais. He is one of the coordinators of the proposal. And please don't leave Akiko without talk with Dr. Meira. We must change many ideas in here, and this is a very important place to do that. So I believe in a few months, 2 or 3 months maximum, our institute is a public institute, but without government interference. This is a multi-sectorial participation, of course, academia, industry, big techs, everything. Everybody must be there because we have to dialogue with everyone and understand the concerns of each one. So, as I said, Caio, to finish, we have just 2 minutes. I mean, we have at this very moment many MOUs signed with many other countries. Of course, there are countries that are in the state of the art in the current way to mitigate the problems with this, but there are a lot of countries that has nothing, no infrastructure, no people to work in the subject. So we are all the time trying to work together, especially with our neighbors. And then, finally, I mean, I think the biggest problem is the time of the politics, the bureaucracy. Sometimes we would like to do something in a very short time, but we are unable. So what we are doing first, solving the Brazilian problems, working together, and discussing with the world. And our presence here, Dr. Meira came. Next meeting is about AI safety in England, I think. Yeah. Dr. Meira came to discuss with the colleagues from England. What can we do? Of course, we have a main line. We know almost what we should do. But of course, to change ideas, to exchange ideas is absolutely important in this kind of subject. So I think we are in the right way. And listen, my colleagues, I believe we think similarly. Thank you.
Amazing. And with exactly a minute to wrap up, I'd like to thank you all, the speakers. We managed to, what's the lay of the land? What can we detect right now with instruments such as the incident monitoring at the OECD? What are the challenges in terms of what information do we need to acquire? What are the biases of the information we have? And we discussed the whole life cycle of incident monitoring. What are the pipelines? What are the thresholds we should have? What are the next steps? And bringing this infrastructure to beyond countries that have already established AI safety institutes, but to other nations who will also are already dealing with AI, and the full response incident response monitoring preparedness will only happen once we have buy-in from everyone in a shared infrastructure. Otherwise, our problems are just going to go forum shopping. They're going to skip around, and they're going to persist. And exactly at 0, I thank you all for attending. Big round of applause.
It's not a big stress.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's amazing. Good. Thank you very much.